All right, ladies and gents, what's going on? My name is Anthony Michael Russo. That is my handle below. I see we've got a few people that have already joined us. Mama J, welcome. Valerie Dawn, again, great seeing you guys here as well. We've got some new and interesting topics for the week. I am still looking if anybody is on right now that is interested in actually chatting coming on. I would love to have people from both sides come on at one point today or the next episode. We'll be trying to do these regularly on Tuesdays. Truth will set you free Tuesday. Things I want to discuss today are things like voting by mail, wearing a mask, the concept behind it, freedoms behind it. I do want to bring up one positive situation, a story, a Twitter post that is kind of just gets the gist of the concept behind BetheChange and sharing a positive message. Look into false narratives, the dangers behind them, as well as things like, let's see, the healthcare. Why there's a really cool Facebook page that is, why do Americans eat like they have free healthcare? Talk about that, and also some of the health statistics that are ever evolving and changing. Sean, how's it going, buddy? Greetings from Columbus, Ohio. Please feel free to share the page with your friends. Bring them on if they're doing a watch party, or if you do a watch party, I can't actually see the comments they have, so tell them to join us on the BetheChange page. As we grow, we're going to have a few other shows. I talked to a woman today that talks about proper ways of eating, healthy eating, a positive outlook on food, and she should be starting her BetheChange show in about a week and a half, so that's exciting. So the more positive content we can have, the better. This one's obviously a little bit more in-depth and a little bit more conversational in terms of how people feel on politics. I do want to stress the fact that the concept behind this is not to make somebody right-wing or left-wing. The concept behind this is to make people realize that everybody has a different opinion and educate them on their opinions. And the ability to know what the truth is and what is an opinion, which you're allowed to have. You're an American, you're a human being, totally allowed to have an opinion. Just educate yourself on those opinions. So I want to start out with something positive. I did show this on our movie review show, Biscuits and Gravy, as my BetheChange moment of the day a few days back. I believe it was last Friday. So this is cool right here. This is from, let's see, who was it? It was football player. I think it was Chad Johnson. Took a picture of a check that he did a really good tip on, and somebody from former member of the military said, "Why take the picture?" And somebody replied back and actually protected Chad Ochocinco and said because he wanted to stop judging people for doing good. And that's kind of the point of BetheChange, and what we go through in this is realizing that back a few years ago, it wasn't okay to. It seemed not okay to share the positive things you were doing. It seemed like you were gloating and you were just doing it for celebrity, or you were doing it to go viral, or whatever it is. In this day and age, I want you to think about the fact that wouldn't it be nice to go viral and have people go viral for the great things that they do in life and all the positive attributes that they have? So here he is. He took a picture of a receipt where he tipped really well. Somebody stood up for him. He said he wanted to do good, stop judging. And then somebody else came in and said, same reason you have your uniform and your avatar. You're proud of it. And we're here for people, helping people. We need to see more of it. And then the guy that originally made the comment said, thank you for that. I don't know why I didn't look at it that way. And the other gentleman said, thank you for your service. And he said, you're welcome and thank you. That is the most positive way to diffuse a situation, is realizing that if a bunch of people are there to think positively, share what you do. If you give money to a homeless person, don't go ridiculous and like you should make a 20-minute video shoot out of it, but maybe show what you did, or share the story, or share how the impact that it had on you, because that impact is going to be contagious. It's going to be like a virus that we all know how that works right now. It's going to be contagious, and it's going to create other people to do the same thing. And then you become the inspiration, and you become the change that we all want to see in the world, and all the change that we want to be a part of. All right. So Sean just joined. Subjects for discussion. We're going to start with voting by mail. We're going to talk about wearing a mask. I showed the Twitter that I had that I thought was a really nice tweet series. Talk about the concepts of false narratives and how when the country opened back up in a lot of places, it became news in some ways that there was a drastic increase in cases only 4 days later. So that's on there. I do want to, this one's going to be open for discussion. Japan only had 850 deaths. They did not do a full lockdown. They did sensible lockdowns. And then I recently I watched the Tony Robbins video, which I'm going to end on his sentiment at the end of this. I want to play the clip from it. It's mind-boggling when you're actually looking at statistics that change every week. So when people refer to experts, talk about experts is just, it's a very difficult topic. Sean, what did you want to talk about? I can actually private message you a link and we can I'll tell you when to jump on if that works for you. Let me find you real quick, and then I'll get started by voting by mail. Sean. Sean, where are you at? SH. You're an SH, Sean. Yeah, one of those names. I get it. I'll send you the link, and if you want to jump on, tell me which part you want to jump on with, and we'll chat. We'll have a little chit chat. Just sent you the link. Okay, cool. I don't know which one you want to talk about. Just let me know. I'll bring you on. We'll chat. Anywho, Frank, welcome. I like it. I like that. Empathy begets empathy. It is a ripple effect. It is awesome to think about that positivity and what we're talking about in terms of this. If anybody that just joined, what we're referencing is the fact that there was a post made of a positive event that somebody did, and it could have looked like bragging, and somebody thought of it that way, and then they realized that in the end, we're proud of when we do something good, be proud of it, share it. It's not 2011 when it just looks like it's gloating. In this day and age, we need as much positive news as humanly possible. So go do something special, go share it. When I have my Biscuits and Gravy movie show, I give away $5 for trivia, and I don't want people to donate it back. I want them to use it for something completely random that starts a ripple effect of love and care and change. So, all right, let's talk about voting by mail. So this is a post that I saw up on somebody's page this week. Let's see, here it is. It is safe to mail tax refunds, Social Security checks, stimulus checks, draft registrations, prescription drugs, passports, your driver's license, or the actual ID used to vote. Then it's safe to vote by mail. Cool. So I actually replied to this post. It was a girl I went to high school with a long time ago. And I said, that's fair, but you literally brought up all the reasons why it's a terrible idea. Now, is there voting is there mail-in voting all over the country? Absentee ballots? Absolutely, but that's not on a drastic and mass scale. So here's the issues. And I said, these are the points that you just proved in it. It's safe to mail tax refunds. So what's interesting about tax refunds is they're often done illegally, not done correctly. And people often have issues with their taxes. So that's a terrible example. Social Security checks, those typically do arrive at one point or another. Stimulus checks are hilarious to make a reference out of. Stimulus checks right now are continuously a point of contention. People aren't receiving them. The right people aren't receiving them. They're not receiving them in the right amount of time. They're now switching to having these stimulus checks being sent by cards. The initial idea was direct deposit, which would make it digital. So all these different concepts based on stimulus checks, you're proving the point of why that's a terrible idea. Draft registrations is funny because personally, when I was younger and I had to actually fill out my draft registration card with the USPS, it didn't get to me correctly because of a change in address. So it took months to track down. How would this be an effective method for voting? And I can continue to go on some of the other stuff. ID users, prescription drugs. I believe as though that is done half and half. There is ways of getting prescription drugs online, or you order them from Canada and they mail them, whatever it might be. But the thought process is the absentee ballots, the way it works now, is they're on a limited amount of numbers. Drew, you do vote by mail in Washington. I actually looked that up earlier. The way you vote by mail in Washington is you get it and then you put it in a box. And I believe as though Washington is one of two states where it is their main means of voting. I do believe, however, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because it was actually hard to find this out when I researched it, whether or not you can actually go to a voting booth, a poll per se. All right, Sean, I just saw your message. If you want to hop on, whatever, hop on. I'll bring you up and we can go back and forth on a couple of things. So the question Sean brought up is, how secure of a mail-in ballot is it? So in most of the places that are doing these so it's either by box or regular mail. Okay. So most of the places that do these, it's been a system that they put in place. I believe it's the Oregon and Washington were 1998 that they've been doing it. It has been successful to that point. These are not densely populated cities. And also it's not part of a larger election in terms of the whole country doing it and handling that kind of mass amount of mail. The last thing I'll say is, a lot of times absentee ballots are a little bit more effective because nobody knows who sent absentee ballot. You can vote. People still vote in person as well. So it's not the only means of voting. There's a lot of options, but they allow it across the board. Cool. So what the thought process is of the way that they're changing the voting process, say in California, is they're literally saying that it's only going to be a mail-in ballot. So again, bringing up this point, all the flaws in the USPS and not having mass ballots, you're also opening yourself up for people know when they're going to come to everybody, when they're going to go out from everybody. So it's very easy to track that every single mailbox is going to have something important in it. So do I believe that there will be fraud? There's always some kind of foul play in politics. So I don't believe anything that comes out of a full political thing. And I'm not saying right wing or left wing or conservative or liberal. I'm saying fact is it's just not something to be trusted. And now you're adding an easy target. You're painting a target on the back of every part of the voting system. And USPS is how I used to conduct my business when I was writing 150 checks a week for brand ambassadors. And I could tell you in the years 2011 to 2018, how bad the U.S. Postal Service had become in terms of accuracy, the amount of actual checks, and that's why we switched strictly to direct deposit, the amount of actual checks that were received were minimal. We literally went from it being we went from about 90%, so 9 out of 10 that would be received, which is still a terrible thought in terms of the percentages of an election, all the way down to we went down to, let's see, at the very end when we decided to stop doing it in case of an emergency, we were down to 7 out of 10 checks actually got there correctly. So we're all of a sudden going to place your full voting in the hands of the USPS. You can, Drew. And you know what's interesting? You're going to be able to, you can track any of your mail. This is still when we are still losing mail. Even with it being trackable at this point, it's still just something that I wouldn't trust. And you're also asking people to take a second step. Absentee balloting, all good in my opinion. And again, this is strictly my opinion. But ultimately it seems like it's opening our country up for disaster in terms of making this a blanket across the board. It is a state by state rule, which is the states have the right to do these things. But obviously from an executive level, they have the ability to voice an opinion. And in the end, they could actually have an executive order. But I hope it doesn't really come to that. I've got Sean backstage. Hold on. Let me see what Frank said really quick. Not allowing for this mail-in in this climate eliminates the elderly and minority vote. No. So Frank, I do agree with you. I think there is extenuating circumstances. I think opening the concept of absentee balloting and special needs balloting is 100% something that our country should put together. I believe as though they already are. So yeah, nursing homes are going to be at risk in terms of whether or not their votes actually get counted correctly or however it is, but at least that's minimizing the risk. We need some system adjustment in order to make voting more equitable. I don't want to read into that, but I'm curious what you mean by that, Drew. Go ahead and explain that a little bit more for you. Sean, I don't know what okay. So Jason, I did see your post earlier today as well. Oh, by the way, on the comment that I had regarding this post, me and a couple people had very sensible responses and why we felt it as though it wasn't a great idea. And we explained our reasons the same way as I did just now. Instead of having a discussion back, we were actually just blocked. So that's typically the way you know that there is really no way for them to argue or discuss back. Jason with a 0.000000000001% fraud rate. Why are we hyping it all the way up and that we'll create fraud? Can I please see the reference, J Diddy, on that fact? I would if that is the true fact on that fraud rate. Again, it is a little bit different when not everybody is doing it, but if that is truly the fraud rate that is 100% confirmed, I will completely retract any statement I have, but it would need to be a very, very, very credible source for me to believe that there is a 0.000. That means that there is one bad ballot out of that means that 0.000001, that would actually mean that there is one bad ballot out of more than a million. So, okay, go ahead and give that a look. And when you say news, I need it actually backed by governmental fact, not a CNN or CNBC or even Fox News. I don't want that on any BS and mainstream news. Got it. I promise I'm bringing you on soon, Sean. Let's see. Now this could not agree more. Should be. It's a very special time for people to exercise their right to be an American. Show up about 5 minutes while others have to wait several hours. I get it. That sucks. I don't know. I don't know how to answer something that's been done for hundreds of years, and it's just the way it is. Now there was horrible voting inadequacies in anything before the 60s and 70s in terms of African American or black vote. They were completely cheated, so that's true. But fact is, that's not going to happen across the board today. And showing up is the way to prevent against any of that. Agreed. And that's why I think we should have absentee ballots for those that are elderly or immunocompromised. We do that already for people who have professions in most states or a lot of states. So that's all it is. All right, I'm going to bring Oh, okay. Thank you, Frank. Okay, I'm going to bring out Sean. Sean, we've never actually gotten to talk in person, so let me check your microphone. Let me see if I can hear you right now. Can you hear me?
Russo, I can't hear you. We've lost audio.
All right, hold on. I can hear you. You got a little bit of a delay. Hold on one sec. Let's see.
Yeah.
How about now?
No, I'm still not getting any audio.
So what I need you to do.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good. Hold on. All right, Sean, I'm going to send you a message real quick. So bottom of your screen, there is a microphone button area. Make sure the audio is set correct. All right. To your internal microphone. All right, I sent that to you. We'll try again in a minute. Yeah, we can go in and out again. All right. Yeah, that's another issue with some of the absentee ballots. When I had an address in Milwaukee and an address in St. Louis. I was receiving multiple ballots. There's a lot of. It's definitely not a perfect science, which is why I still do think it's better to show up in person. 100%. And that, interestingly enough, Drew, when you have the hanging Chad saga of 2000, that was back when I was a super true blue Democrat. So that bothered me to the nth degree, and it still bothers me today. So why would we allow an opportunity for more failed process? It doesn't make any sense. Let's see. All right. So that's the voting by mail. If you guys have any comments on that, please continue to add that, and I'll go back and cover that as well. But again, I do find it odd that when I bring up things like the issues, it's immediately just deleted by the people that post it. If you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. Don't post on Facebook if you're going to do a controversial topic, and you're not going to be willing to hear out why other people believe as though that they can answer your question. It will be a mess. Let's hope that it's not, but it's our current governmental system, and that's Republican, Democrat, Independent. All of it is a very broken system. So let's hope that it won't be a mess. Sean, I'm going to try you real quick. Let's see if this works. Rolling the dice. How about now?
I can hear you just fine now. I don't know what happened here, but I just reset the phone here.
There you go. It's all good. All right, what's good, Sean? We've never actually got to meet in a call, so this is actually our first time meeting. I know you joined when I had a Jeff Markinet's event, and I got to meet you then. We've agreed in some ways in terms of a little bit of our political stance. Doesn't mean that we're right. It just means that we have, or right or wrong. It just means that we have a belief. Say that again.
I said reasonable people can still agree to disagree.
Correct, and doesn't
matter if you're on the right or on the left.
Right, that is kind of the point of all this. Is we all have a different concept we all have a different environment that brought us to this point, and we have different means of information that we rely on, and unfortunately, there is no true fact anymore. So so we can get into a conversation, Sean.
We lost the audio again.
Really?
What happened?
What kind of phone are you on?
Audio's gone here.
Check 1, check 2. I'm gonna send you one more message in Facebook. We'll try third time. Try one more time. Well, you look like you're saying something good. All right. So the next thing I'm going to talk about then is let's see what else I got. So I'm going to talk about wearing a mask. I don't know if Sean will jump back in on this one, but this was a post, and somebody said, here's how you grieve 100,000 lives. You wear a mask at the damn grocery store. You wash your hands and keep your distance and show kindness to cashiers. And you follow the simple rules put in place to keep people healthy and alive, because that's what decent human beings do. And because 100,000 grieving families deserve it. Here's the deal. I couldn't agree more. At this point, the idea of wearing masks, although it is incredibly flawed, is it really hurting your freedoms to just put on a mask? So for the most part, when I'm out in public and I'm at a grocery store, I try to bring my mask. I try to make sure I'm wearing it, especially if it is the rules of an establishment. The same way, and I do find it odd that the right-wing side starts to have a little bit of an issue with wearing the masks when places of ownership and private places are requiring their patrons to wear a mask. If you're a private establishment, the same people that fought for the right for the company that made that was the cake company that did not want to serve a homosexual couple, and then now you're saying that a business can't make the decision. So I guess that goes the other direction. Let me specify. So first off, it's a private entity. Think of it that way. So if we're controlling the means and asking the means of what a private business is allowed to do, then why are we balking when a place you have the right to not go in that place? If you are saying masks are bullshit, I don't want to wear a mask, then it's their right as a business owner. Now, Sean, you are correct. 3 days ago, masks do not help the stop of the spread. Here's the thing. Here's the biggest issue. Is every week this is changing since the very beginning. I have a video of Dr. Fauci on 60 Minutes on March 8th that I could bring up right now that says there's no need for us to be running around with masks. I've seen how he talks about how really maybe it'll help a droplet. Now, at that time, we were trying to conserve masks. Cool. So maybe there was a role in the messaging that's coming out there, which also should lead you to believe that the messaging that's coming out there is not always in the best interest of the actual individual viewer. It could be about the whole. It could also be the fact that they're still not sure. For example, I'm going to go ahead and bring up a lot of new findings, and I'm going to start at the very bottom because the person that posted this is a friend of mine, and he is a chiropractic physician and also researches from a lot of documents. So if you look at this, he took it from 10 different sources just to have one article posted on his social media. If you're watching. So there is a long list of sources. Could they all be maybe a little bit incorrect? Could some of them have? Absolutely. But right now we're going on what different experts are telling us. There is no one perfect expert and one incorrect expert. So I'm going to go with this one first. What have we learned in the last few weeks? CDC now says that the virus isn't as infectious on surfaces as we thought. That's a new one that just came out last week. Asymptomatic people are highly unlikely to infect others. Talks of a second wave have gone quieter as the first wave seemed to have not panned out as thought. Some officials are suggesting there is no second wave coming. I'll stop here for a second. If we've noticed, they've started to loosen guidelines. A lot of states are opening up ahead of schedule. Things are going even faster than phase 2. So a lot of these things are being found to be a little bit different. But going back to the first 2 points, you've got 2 sticking points that were huge in the shutdown of our country. Asymptomatic people were a huge fear. I could be walking around feeling 100% and I could pass it to somebody else and pass it to somebody else and pass it to somebody else. And the next thing you know, that's how everybody in our country died. It's not happening that way. We haven't heard anything about that until just this last week, which is a little bit unsettling knowing that we're over 2.5 months from this original holy crap theory that we could all die very quickly and from asymptomatic carriers and the touching of surfaces, which in the very beginning, when they said the R naught number was 2 or I think it was 4, whatever it wasn't drastic. It was bad, but it wasn't drastic. So just a reminder that as everybody shames people for their information, please realize that information is changing every 2 minutes of every day. It's absolutely insane to shame people based on information. And a lot of this stuff that is being said about asymptomatic people being highly unlikely to affect others, CDC now says the virus isn't as infectious on surfaces as once thought, was originally said months ago by doctors that were being told they were kooks and crazy and incorrect and whack jobs. All these people that were originally saying it have been saying it from the very beginning. So realize there was a lot of experts that were quieted because they were considered whack jobs that also are now proving to be a little bit more on the correct side. Let's see. CDC estimates asymptomatic rate a conservative 35%, and the illness fatality rate is 0.03 for those under 50. I have some other statistics from another doctor that I watched on a Tony Robbins video that he recently posted. Let's see. And I actually own stock in this company. The front runner for a vaccine showed horrible and painful results among their human guinea pigs, but hid the information long enough to sell their stocks insider trading anyone. So my stock was up really good. And then the last week has dropped over 20%. So apparently drug companies don't care about health. That's a little bit of an opinion, but I can't disagree with that belief. We got some comments. Let me see what we got over here. Let's see, Frank, they have. And that's the key of if somebody's a doctor and they're a physician, why are we shaming people for their anecdotal evidence, their 20 years in practice? Some of them have been Nobel Prize winners that people are saying they can't be correct because they're not Dr. Fauci. Let's go back to Dr. Fauci again in March, saying to the American public, who is the poster child for the American doctors all of a sudden, is coming out saying you don't need a mask. And then a month later, he said we did need a mask. And then now they're saying we don't need a mask again. Nobody has been 100% correct. So technically, where there is another opportunity or another option or another voice that isn't going with the mainstream, it's that whole concept of where there's smoke, there's fire. That's the side that I'm at least entertaining. I'm not saying they're right. I'm at least looking over to those statements. To not believe that they have a valid point, even though they've got a degree in a medical degree and they're a physician, to not give them any validity or justice because they don't agree with Dr. Fauci, who hasn't actually practiced on patients. And how I think, and he's also backed by the federal government, that we only, for some odd reason, Republicans only have faith in the federal government when it's their guy saying it, and Democrats only have faith in the federal government when it's their person saying it, but they assume that everybody is doing the right thing when it's their side. It makes zero sense whatsoever. I agree. Florida does have a huge at-risk population, but it's hard to compare anything to New York. New York has a density like no other. However, there is upstate New York had the outbreaks that didn't seem to make sense based on density. So again, I think the etymology of this is something, as I mentioned, and as Frank said, is so consistently changing that for years we may not know exactly how or why it spread the way that it did. So it makes no sense. South Dakota never closed. They showed a job increase because people went up there and worked. Mama J, you've been in Florida. I saw you golfing. I saw you shot a 91, by the way. So mad props to shooting a 91. Approximately 50% of the high-risk population, aka are walking around without mask, and have a relaxed take on this. So it's weird. So as each week goes, same thing. My mom is in her 60s. She's an incredibly healthy 60-year-old. I still don't want to risk her health. There's still something scary whether we know the percentages or not. So there is a point of being careful, because why not? It's no sweat off my back to not be careful. Now, to close businesses and to close jobs right now just doesn't seem to make sense to continue those businesses being closed. Very valid point, Sean. And I do want to talk, and Japan just came out with their not final numbers, but major numbers. And there's no really good explanation why they're so low. So I can maybe skip into that real quick right after this. Let's see, what's the next image I got? What did I want to bring up next? So we've talked about voting by mail. I think I missed a comment a little bit ago. Yeah, Sean, just keep posting it here. I don't know what happened. We'll do a sound check before next time. Sean, if somebody is medically unable to wear a mask, that is 100% fair. And I think they're carrying cards. I know it sounds like the Gestapo, but if somebody's unable to wear a mask because they hyperventilate or whatever it might be, I'm not a huge fan of wearing one, but I can. Then they should be allowed to obviously not wear a mask, and they should be able to explain themselves. Now, if the establishment that they want to go into does not allow it, then it becomes a question of American freedoms as a business owner or as a person. And I don't know. I'm not going to have an answer for that one, because I think that's where it gets a little bit dicey. Mama J flew, chosen to pay a little more in the fare so I can have the option not be required to wear one. Interesting. So you have the freedom of that choice, and if so you can actually, I didn't know you could pay more to not have to wear a mask. That's interesting. So it's cool. You're free to not wear one. Back to the comment of if somebody's got a private business, Sean said, if a business doesn't want a business, you can go somewhere else. Absolutely. Just the same way as they have a right to, if they want to make people wear masks, who knows? Maybe they've got a stage 4 cancer husband or wife or parent that they have to see every day. At that point, you also have to respect them as the business owner. They have to continue to do business in a way that makes them safe and still successful. Let's see. Which expert do you believe? At the end of the day, even the doctor doesn't trust one advisor. To me, the only two groups that are not influenced on up-to-date journal, peer-reviewed publications, and NIH. Read and then decide for yourself. Agreed. There's a ton of stuff out there. It's hard to find, and you have to sort through what's peer-reviewed, what's not peer-reviewed, what's from the National Institute of Health. But if you don't do the research, you cannot shame people for having a different educated opinion. That's the point. If you're seeking truth and you're doing the best to seek it and you have an opinion, great. If somebody else has a very different opinion that's also seeking the same truth and going about it the same way, that doesn't make this person less than. That's the concept to remember. Valerie, I'm actually going to, before I talk about Tokyo, people do have asthma. Yeah. So there's a website, and I didn't bring it up. It's called Why Do Americans Eat Like They Have Free Healthcare? I think they just let me into their group. It's 50,000 strong. It's actually quite funny. And it shows how horrible we eat as Americans. And it's like this, I know, in several other countries, especially once they started adopting the American eating habits. It's a concept that I brought up last week. I've talked about it a couple times in different groups of friends. But fact is, why is it that we are putting so much emphasis on vaccines, antibiotics, how to take care of this in the end, when the biggest thing we're showing is that healthy people had a point, as of right now, the mortality rate of a sub 60% is 0.002%, which is almost not even a full 2 times the average flu. So the mortality rate is twice the flu for those who are healthy and take care of themselves and are under 60. And by the way, actually, that's take care of themselves under 60. So think about it exponentially for those that are taking care of themselves. It's a thought process that boggles my mind that we don't worry more about the foods going into our system, how we actually take care of our bodies. The fact that right now, you've got in that group, you've got parents posting the terrible things that they feed their children, and they're just, it's a savings of money. And you know what? For some families, they don't have an option to eat better, eat healthier. So why are we not marching and complaining to the federal government that organic food costs twice or three times the amount of non-organic food? Why are we not fighting the fact that processed foods you can buy for 99 cents when you actually need the real food, or something that's a little harder to cook even per se, or whatever it might be, for three times that price, and feeding an American family, which therefore also creates even more of an inequality gap between socioeconomic groups. So you've got so many things polarizing and pulling it apart, yet we're worried more about vaccines and more about the medicine and big pharma when there's other things that are at play. It just shows that there's a misguided presence. I don't want to get you started, Valerie. I don't. Hold on. Husband's putting in food is power. Love you, Frank. Hopefully I'll see you on biscuits and gravy. Can we? Hopefully see you. I think we're doing tomorrow, and then again the big show on Friday. And Chad is back, but your boy Matt Troyer is not. Yeah, so I'm half Jewish, Sean, and I get it. It's the people that aren't wearing masks. I'm down in Charleston, South Carolina right now, and they don't really care. But I do get what you're saying. They're like, "Oh my God, shame on you." I get it. It could go either way. It does kind of look like the Gestapo making people wear masks. In the meantime, unless you have asthma, unless you have a difficulty, my personal belief, and this doesn't go for anybody else, if somebody really wants you to wear it, wear it. I mean, I know it sucks that it seems like it's silly, but it is what it is. Now, we're also sacrificing our ability to have the pathogens of illnesses and build up our immune system. So part of it is also counterproductive, but that's the whole rabbit hole that we don't need to go. Agreed. I mean, flowers are beautiful and all, but when you can actually feed somebody with things, it's, a different thought. Okay, so we talked a little bit about wearing a mask, talked about voting by mail. Let's really quick jump into Japan. If anybody knows, no, you're good. You're good, Sean. It's not anti-Semitic, because it's actually it follows that same thought process of why are we being forced to do so many things? And actually, I'll explain more, because somebody else said, well, why? I was having a long conversation actually with some of my co-hosts from Biscuits and Gravy, and a lot of them we were talking about the misinformation, the threat of censorship on social media. The fact is, we're the people that are getting judged for looking at something that's outside of the norm, even if it's done by doctors. And I love this image right here, that as a country, we're looking towards random people. If you're further on the left, you look at Greta Thunberg, 17-year-old Swedish girl with zero experience in microorganism, gets unsolicited free airtime to talk about COVID-19. She's talked about climate change. And all of these doctors are shamed for their expert opinion that just differs from the norm. Some of them have had their videos pulled from YouTube, pulled from Facebook. It's a scary thought, because they're picking and choosing who they want to be their poster child, and then saying somebody is uneducated, or you can't talk to somebody that doesn't have a degree in this. They're not educated, yet they're referencing a 17-year-old, whatever she is. It's a poster child for creating change, but she's creating change in a direction that's backed by one political group that has a very political focus on mind, instead of the well-being of people and the well-being of the country. So the whole thought process that it's a gambling philosophy that a sports bettor once told me, that when something seems too good to be true, bet the opposite way. So for example, if Alabama is playing against University of Phoenix, who doesn't even have a football team, and the spread is only 24 points, and you're going, wow, there's no way that Alabama is not going to win by more than 24 points. I want to bet Alabama. His lifelong betting advice was, when something is totally amiss, when it's so blatantly obvious that this is incorrect, it shouldn't be that way. Usually there's a reason, and 9 times out of 10 in his experience, for some odd reason, if you were to bet University of Phoenix on that one for 20, they'll lose by only 22 points out of nowhere. So the concept is where there's smoke, there's fire, and where there's something that doesn't seem to make sense, usually you go to the other side and you learn a little bit from that other side. All right, so we talked about voting by mail, talked about wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. And again, the whole concept is we have a lot of freedom to be able to wear or not wear the mask. That's part of being an American. Let's see what we got. So we'll talk about the false Japan. Does anybody have any idea how Japan only has 850 deaths? I really don't. I have no idea. They didn't do a full shutdown. I started researching it before this show, and I never quite got to the ability to get to that. I don't. They're not really able to explain it. They had less of a shutdown than the United States. They had more social distancing. So if anybody has any ideas, that'd be great to bring up. I have no idea. Maybe we'll talk about it more on the next episode. They also eat a little bit better than Americans. So yeah, why do Americans eat like they have free healthcare? That's something definitely to check out on Facebook. All right, we'll talk about the false narrative. We're getting close to wrapping up on this show. If anybody's got any topics or questions, I've got some interesting places to check things out for you. But I really do want some people on the next episode to come on. We'll have them come on beforehand. We'll plan it. And again, if you're liberal, if you're a Republican, I want both. If you have friends that like to argue with you, say you're more conservative and you've got a liberal friend that's just a pain in your ass, please tell them about the show. I would love to talk to them and have an open format conversation. That's funny. It's an interesting thought. All right. Let's see. Censorship on Facebook. Let's see what I got here. Is this the one? Yeah. So, and I think the more that the media pushes one side of an argument, the more people are starting to open their eyes. So it's almost like they push the envelope too far. This has been posted on a couple of my previously very liberal friends' pages that are now going, wait a second, this doesn't make any sense. So as we know, a good portion of the country started opening up a couple weeks ago. So somebody says the narrative now is the states that reopened in the last 72 hours. And I had a conversation with somebody today where they question this, and they're not a big news watcher. And I rephrase it to them, and they go, well, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. So the narrative is now that the states that have reopened in the last 72 hours have had an uptick in COVID-19 cases. I thought the incubation period took up to 14 days. So you mean to tell me that in 72 hours, people went out in public, came in contact with an infected person, contracted the virus, started getting symptoms, went to the doctor and got tested, got their results back, and rushed them to the media so we could all be reinformed, or could be informed 72 hours later? I think that speaks for itself. The fact that is what is being blasted out there. I remember day 5, after a good portion of the country is open, the news stories started pouring in. Our testing is increasing by the day, so there's going to be more cases. But how does that have any relationship just because the headline says, look here, the states that have opened up, drastically higher cases. Texas, where I'm from, for example, had limited testing numbers. They opened up, and literally the week that they're testing, that they opened up, they were able to get a lot larger quantity of tests. So their numbers went up. Had zero to do with the opening. Now, we'll find out in a couple of weeks. There's bars that are open. I've seen things on social media that I don't personally think smart. But fact is, and this is a fact, there is no way in 4 days, that all these people can be contracted, and it's to the point where it's silly. And Sean, I had this conversation. Actually, one thing I didn't mention that I wanted to talk about is I watched the movie Waco, the docuseries, the dramatic docuseries. It's the scariest thing. I'm like, if the people from Waco, if the David Koresh and they were around today, I mean, if the government keeps pushing this narrative, there's going to be these crazy groups, ex-military, people that live off the land, whatever it is that believe in a different level of freedoms, and they really take everything to heart. There could be a revolt, and it's scary. Hi, Will. How's it going? Are you going to go skiing at A Basin? I heard A Basin opened up, and you were talking about it. I know it's $99. I think you should go. #freedom. So if anybody hasn't seen Waco, and this is a different story because this is about the hate that we spread on social media that does not need to be there. a friend of mine had a post that that mentioned, God, what was it? Oh, it was written very bipartisan, but it was probably somebody that had slightly more liberal or left-leaning beliefs, and it made a lot of sense. It was talking about, like, we're not a socialist country and people hate socialism, but what we've been through and some of the funding, and it essentially was saying the system is broken. I agreed with it. And I then made a comment because I had just watched Waco, which was a fantastic docuseries. Is it letter of the law truth? No, I'm not a effing idiot. I understand that it's dramatized. So what do I do like any normal person? I go and research a little bit more on it. And I had no idea to this day. I was 13, 10, 11, 12, 11 years old when Waco happened. And I did not realize that since they've found that there was a lot of foul play with the government, all I remember thinking is that David Koresh was batshit crazy, when in the end it's seeming that he was guilty of gun infractions, owning a few too many guns, and that he was a polygamist, which obviously people that were around in that time were taught to believe that he was much, 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 much worse than that. So to trust the government is a very dangerous slope in a full manner. To be open-minded, to believe in your government has the best intentions in mind, and to support your leaders is one thing, but to not be allowed to question things is different. Yes, with underage girls, that is correct, Mom. Mom's watching. There was some really bad stuff. However, based on Texas law, it was actually oddly legal, but it was still wrong on several different ways. But what we were taught to believe is that they were zealots that were trying to kill law enforcement, when in fact that was not the case. It's still not the true story. But anyways, I commented on a post on Facebook about how dangerous and how broken the system is. And one voice decided to essentially downplay my point because I was talking about a dramatized television series, to which I replied, I understand that. I'm not saying that I just based my opinion on that. It opened my eyes to something, and it was a series from 2 years ago that just got put on Netflix now. It opened my eyes, so I'm going to go ahead and research more. So I spent like an hour more researching the actual story. And does that make me an expert on it? No. Was I there? No. But it gave me a moment for pause. And this person typically is an online troll that always fights the opinions of people that have political beliefs different than him. And he fought me. So all he was trying to do is explain we were actually on the same page in agreement. He even kind of specified that he just wanted to be an asshole. So my thought process to those out there is, if somebody's got a different or a similar opinion, you just want to be an asshole, don't do it, because it's pointless. Then you're just an asshole. So ultimately, I do recommend watching Waco. It was very interesting. And once you watch it, please do some more research and learn a little bit more about the situation. Talking about the government, Sean is saying they're interested at heart, not the people's interests. And that is why I do believe our system has evolved to a point where it needed to be broken. And it still needs to be broken, because right now, again, I can't fully say that I agree with everything that Trump does. And I can't fully say that I disagree with some of the more liberal beliefs. I do think we're seeing some good sides to helping fellow Americans and stimulus and almost a socialist concept. But our capitalism is rooted in a form of socialism. There's no doubt about some of the free programs. I think socialized health or universal health care, if done correctly, can actually be incredibly powerful. John Edwards originally had a bill that actually that made it more affordable healthcare, which had nothing to do with people's taxes going up. It had to do with the fact that currently we pay $600 for Band-Aids. It's just analyzing costs. But fact is, if you don't fully go with where the money is, you're going to have trouble getting bills passed. So the whole infrastructure system that is unfortunately broken in our country. Let's see. So we'll talk more about Japan. If anybody knows, we can talk about it offline after this. And we can talk more about it next week. The false narrative of 4 days. And the dangerous censor on Facebook. And this is going to be a topic for every week, because the kind of really heated discussion I had with some friends of mine that have different political beliefs is one of my good friends said, but that's not Facebook is not the news. And I understand that. Everybody should understand that. But fact is, in this day and age, I should stop saying fact is, but matter of point, this day and age, the way most people, just because it's not correct, the way most people get their information is by shared articles on Facebook. And if these shared articles are incorrect, which a lot of them are, Fox News, CNN, CNBC, MSNBC, they're Business Insider, which is the worst of all of them. But if they're being presented to the American public, that is a predominance of them on Facebook, they're influencers. People are technically the people that spread them are influencers. They are releasing a firestorm of false information, and people are sharing it blindly. The conversation I had with this group was the fact that the one side is being quieted, like these doctors that I bring up here. You've got valid points by medical professionals, some of which who have won Nobel Prize. They've been Nobel Prize winning doctors, and they're being silenced because it doesn't fit the narrative. They're being silenced in YouTube. They're being silenced in Facebook. Why is that dangerous? Because it's not real news, but it is real news in this day and age. It's 2020. That's how the new AP is social media. So if you're only controlling one narrative coming out, as I've said before, there's a doctor that says, I've treated my patients with hydroxychloroquine. It's shown really good anecdotal evidence. They've remained healthy. I had to lie. This is the first time the pharmacies are asking me why I'm prescribing it and what patients, and they're tracking it. There's something wrong going on. And those things are taken down from social media because of what? Because they have a difference in opinion. It's not dangerous. They're stating a fact. They are a doctor treating patients, and it's their actual real life that they're going through. Whereas somebody, again, could go on and say, right now, anybody that's a conservative is to blame for 100 million deaths. They've got the blood on their hands. They're Hitler. They're all these different things. They could post that. It stays up. So you can post something incredibly divisive. You can post something that is a blatant opinion that leads people to hate other people and fight other people. But if a doctor has an opinion that's one direction, that's a little bit different from the mainstream media, which, as I talked about earlier, we're proving even by CDC standards that they were incorrect from the beginning. Asymptomatic people are highly unlikely to infect others. Anybody that said that in the beginning, they're not a legitimate doctor. They're not paying attention. We gave them a complete knockdown as them being a physician. So now opinions are changing on certain things, but those reputations haven't changed, and they're censoring stuff on one side. So the argument becomes, people should be smarter than that. It's unfair. They should know better than to trust social media. They don't, though. I hope people aren't watching me strictly for information, all 10 people watching. That's not the point. The point is seeking your own truth and having an educated opinion. And it's very difficult because social media is monitoring only one side of the equation, which in a lot of ways is the side that has very, very valid facts brought up, but they're going against the norm of society. So why is one side free and one side not free? And that's where there's a lot of concern in my mind, and something that we need to pay attention to. And yes, media is owned by 5 corporations, which anytime you talk about media being owned, that makes zero sense why so many people seem to only to trust the media across the board. It makes no sense. As a country that's so skeptical, it's very odd to me that people shame people that think that a lot of vaccines are bad. I'm not saying anti-vax is correct. I'm saying there's a decent amount of evidence why people aren't a fan of vaccines, and people think they're nut jobs for believing a certain way, even though really all they're doing is disagreeing with big pharmaceutical companies, which, as I think a lot of us know, are the most corrupt big money companies in the world. Yet for some odd reason, they trust them in terms of vaccines, and they think that everybody that doesn't believe the same way is nuts. Again, I'm not anti-vax, but I don't believe that all vaccines are necessary. False narratives all over to, yeah. So that was a perfect example. That was actually the first show I did for Truth Will Set You Free. I talked about that. So this couple that turns out she hated her husband and might have actually murdered her husband, they took fish tank cleaner known as chloroquine, not hydroxychloroquine. It was not medically prescribed. They heard Trump say, and even the article said, he said it was all but a miracle cure, which he never said. He said they're showing good evidence. If our general public isn't smart enough to listen to that correctly, how can they be trusted to know what is a good news story on social media? I think the general public needs to be thought of in terms of the actual censoring of media and how that's a completely unfair narrative for people to have. Will, you did. I missed you on it. I was trying to tag you on stuff and you were gone. I called to check in on you. I will make sure you're right. I do miss your face, and we need to go snowboarding as soon as November, whenever it comes back around. This time, no concussion, please. Let's see what else I got for today. I think that's almost it. There is one really cool video, and I'm going to put it in the box. I'm actually going to copy paste for those of you guys out there. It's a cool, 13-minute video from Tony Robbins where he really gets to the bottom of it. Let's see. I'm going to post it right here. Really cool video. Tony being Tony. And I have an interesting thought about Tony Robbins. So I listened to, so if anybody remembers the scandals around Tony Robbins about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I found out later what he was doing at that time when all of a sudden these people were coming out of the woodwork, which since have subsided and gone away. Hey, Dave, what's going on, bud? I saw that today. I'm curious a little bit more about that. So send me some information on that, Sean. Tony Robbins was actually teaching people a new system of financial freedom, more so than he ever had. And now he obviously at this point in his career, a year and a half ago, has the largest following of any motivational speaker, a ton of money, a ton of clout. And he was essentially breaking the banking system because he was showing that these companies like TD Ameritrade or some of the other big investment firms, New York Life, all of them were showing a certain percentage return when people actually had the power of doing the same investments on a lower amount and getting a higher yield and higher percentage return. So he was cutting out the middleman and teaching people to do it. And then ironically, right around that time when since he's got such clout, he's got the ability of taking 2% off the bottom line of these major companies, the Merrill Lynch's, the whatever they might be, the TD Ameritrades. He's got the ability of taking that off their bottom line, and all of a sudden scandals come out. There is no coincidence when you follow money, is all I can say. And that's a thought that I just want to keep in people's minds. It's not always the case, but it is something that you should question about everything happening in our daily lives now. And Tony Robbins is an example of somebody that kind of got hammered for a bit on stuff that never got followed through with, never got proven. It just affected his clout when he was speaking against the need for banking. All right, so I'm gonna wrap up with this. If anybody's got anything else to say, let me know. I can throw a little bit in there here at the end. We are going to be doing this again next Tuesday. Yeah, all of it went away, Valerie. It disappeared, and everybody that I know that's met Tony, he's intense, but I've heard that he's a really good man, and it didn't make sense. But at the time, I believed it. I drank the Kool-Aid, and I said, another one bites the dust, another shithead. And it sounds like all of it was just to slow down his messages, and it's a shame. So Tony had this cool video that I'm going to bring up. If there's anything else to say, yeah. So we'll be doing this again next Tuesday, probably same time. I like the 5:30 time. I do want to have some guests, so please, conservative, liberal, independent, whatever it might be. I did. So I didn't know if we want to talk about this, but the Minneapolis police murder, I would like to know more of the backstory, but fact is this one looks terrible. The police officers have been fired, all four of them. I do hope they get tried in a court of law correctly and justly. As always, I'd like to hear everything that happened in the story. It sounded, and that doesn't matter if they're black or white. It's just hear the whole story. For example, the Karen in Central Park, if anybody saw that today, I don't think I have an image on that one, but holy shit, that woman was crazy. I don't have an image on it, but Karen, that's what they're calling her. She was walking her dog without a leash and just called the police and said an African-American man was harassing her, trying to kill her that woman's crazy. She's lost her job justly. She also choked her dog trying to hold. The whole scene was mind boggling. And that was, if anybody needs the definition of what a Karen is, that's Karen. I can't imagine anybody naming their kid Karen these days just because of the references. That'd be a weird name to name their kid. Like, maybe in like 7 years, the whole Karen craze will be gone. So if you've named your kid Karen in the last year or two, I apologize. It's not my fault. There's one other graphic that I didn't show. It's the idea about small businesses right now. Small businesses are still getting absolutely hammered, yet they're allowing Walmart, Target, Lowe's, Sam's, Ralph's, Costco, all these major stores, they're allowing them to be open. And every single one of them are major donors to political parties, whether it's Republican or Democrat. So we're doing everything wrong. We're burying the small business owners, which is the American dream. We're burying those that fought to feed their family, raise their family, support their family, and do things the right way. And in the end, the people that are most against big business, we're feeding them. We're making them bigger. Facebook just gained, I think, $25 billion in market. All these companies are just getting, I think the statistic was, I don't know if it was a full 100 billion in wealth has been gained when people are losing their jobs and out of work. But as of right now, it seems like the light at the end of the tunnel is coming. As long as our numbers stay decent, we flatten the curve. And as long as when we reopen, the curve stays flat and we're able to maintain enough medical assistance, beds, and we'll be in great shape. So we'll see. But I will see you guys again next Tuesday. I'll be doing this again. But I do want you, if you're here, check this out. There's a cool end to the Tony Robbins video that I want to play. I think you guys will like it. I'm going to start it right. Where is it? Here. All right. So check this out. This is the last minute and a half. He's got a lot of great facts. He brings on some doctors that are medical professionals that also specify their belief that this is a serious illness. They're not saying that this is BS. They're saying it is serious, but the media's overreaction is just as dangerous. Suicide numbers are insane right now. There's one doctor that's in his practice has seen more attempted suicides in the last month and a half than he's seen in years. I don't think that's in this video. That might be another one. So the damage we've done to our economy, that Japan, by the way, did not, the damage we've done to our economy has long-lasting effects. So it is that time where if we're able to reopen in a semi-safe manner, that's what it was, the percentages. So we can open in a semi-safe manner. You're looking at 70 plus right now, as of the current numbers, 3 to 5% mortality rate, which is horrible, incredibly dangerous. However, that is a incredibly small sliver of our functional economy. So if you protect that group, that age group, then you've got 60 and under right now are 0.002%, which is, as I said earlier, 2 times that of the flu. So if that's the numbers that we're really seeing in terms of mortality rate, why is it become something that is still a point of contention? Mathematically, it doesn't make sense that for something twice as big as the flu, we're completely shutting down. There's 480,000 people a year that die of cigarette smoke. We haven't stopped people from smoking. We put a warning label up. We're free citizens. We're Americans that have the choice of what we want to do with our life. Valerie, tomorrow I always practice Wealth Wednesday. Anonymous Financial give you a small amount to change your life. Be the change. Valerie, tell me more about it. I'll throw it up on the Be the Change page. If I can help out at all, let me know. All right, this is how we're going to end. We're going to end with a little Tony Robbins action. Always a good way to end the day with good old T-Rob. So this is the end of his clip. Is anybody else not getting sound, or is that just David? If somebody else says no sound, I'll just stop it and tell you to watch it. If anybody is getting sound, tell me you're getting sound. Anybody? Mic check 1 2 1 2. I'll keep playing it then. Maybe it's just yours, David. No. All right, that's 2 people say no sound. Sorry about that. That's weird. So go ahead and watch the video. I'm gonna I'll put that back in there. Go ahead and watch it. It's only 12, 13 minutes. You guys will enjoy it. I'll figure out why the sound didn't play, and we'll fix that for next time because I kind of want to end with it. It's really good. Sorry about the no sound. Check out the video. It's pretty good. Let's see what Will's got to say to end it. You can choose to smoke further like this, have no bounds, but of course, I understand it's all about money though. But I get what you're saying, Will, but to play devil's advocate, you can choose to smoke. Viruses have no bounds. Technically, out of those 480,000 people that died from cigarette smoke last year, the statistic was 41,000 of them died from secondhand smoke. So technically, it doesn't know any bounds either. It is. It's all about money. Big tobacco still has a stake in the American public, as well as obviously the pharmaceutical companies and viruses. Viruses like this have no bounds. That is 100% true. But how we handle it and how we continue to live and make money and support our families and be good to the people around us does. So, thank you guys for joining. And I don't know if Valerie's still on here, but I do want to know a little bit more about what you're doing. Jessica, thanks for jumping on. David, I know you joined a little bit late. Thank you. We'll see you guys again next week. I am actually working on having more programming. So if you know somebody that has some really cool stuff that they're doing and they want to talk about the change that they're creating in the world around them, making it a better place. This is as politically minded as the show can get. And I know that I start to lean more and more right when I talk, but I really do have some very liberal beliefs as well. The whole general concept, this show is a little bit more right-leaning than most. The general concept is to be good to the people around you, understand that nobody is wrong. I'm technically trying to protect those that are getting maligned and having people go ballistic for having a difference of opinion. And that's unfair. That's part of being an American. We should stop losing our friends over our political beliefs and instead having a conversation. And if we no longer want that conversation, we talk about something else that doesn't relate and don't think that person is stupid or less than. We all have a lot of equal beliefs and equal opportunity in order to live the life that we want to live and have the opinions that we have. Now, if you're very stubborn on somebody else's opinions, make sure that your opinions are based on in fact and research. And if you don't have that kind of backing, then don't talk about politics. I always say stay in your lane. Don't talk about things you don't necessarily know. Ladies and gents, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Will, thanks for joining as well. I will see you guys on Truth Will Set You Free Tuesday next week. We also have biscuits and gravy, just a chit chat episode tomorrow. We'll be giving away $5 Venmos, at least 3 or 4 of them. Hopefully we will join you guys there. And remember to be the change you wish to see in the world.